buckets or with little edges that they can get into, chicken water, whatever. 5 reasons to never open feed. There is nothing that I think is a poor way to feed your bees. Number 1, it incites robbing behavior. Who will they rob? They will rob your new colonies that you're going to try to overwinter. Whoever is the weakest is who they will get into. And once robbing has started and those bees are in a robbing frenzy, they don't want to stop. They're just looking for the next victim. It's like, woohoo, party. So don't do that. Whose bees are you feeding? If you're open feeding, you may well be feeding your neighbor's bees or the feral bees or whatever bees. But I guarantee, number 3, your weakest colony, the one that you need to feed the most, will be getting the least amount of feed. Because they have the least amount of bees to forage. They don't have a lot of foraging bees because they're tiny. So they will get the least amount of feed. It is a way to spread varroa as they are rubbing up against each other. We know that varroa mites go from bee to bee, and it will spread diseases like American foul brood, if you have that, European foul brood, which some of us do have some issues with, and I think the viruses that are associated with varroa. We have 5 reasons. We could probably think of a 6th one, but 5 reasons not to be open feeding. This little ring is to go into a 5-gallon bucket, and they were promoting it as a way to do open feeding in a 5-gallon bucket. And of course, it's just PVC pipe and some plastic mesh. Really a cool idea, but use it for watering. And even though we're going into fall, your bees still need water. So, why are you feeding your bees? Because you have empty frames. So you've done an inspection and you go, no, these guys are hungry. I need to feed them. Who are you feeding? So you're going to choose a feeder that will not incite robbing. Contact feeders are best. And again, we really only want those that they're only going to access that feed if the temperatures are above 40 degrees. Once our temperatures go into that freezing area and we aren't out of the freezing, you can take that liquid feed off because they're just done. They're over getting liquid feed. What are you feeding? Sucrose, sugar, or your saved frames of honey. Consider the emergency frames, and of course, you can move frames for better access for your bees. And when are you feeding? Feed when the bees can utilize the feed. Feed how they can utilize that feed. Choose your feed for the time of year. When not to feed, okay. Bees have plenty of honey stored, and you kind of go, no, they've got all the honey. They are packed full of honey. I don't need to feed my bees. And I have no need to stimulate them. Even when spring comes around, they're great. We're going to let them eat their food. Just make sure you still monitor. It's still a monitor situation. Don't go, they have plenty of food. Because particularly when we have a winter that's really mild, like last winter, it kind of have that up and down and up and down. They go through way more food than you think they're going to. So just check that. Liquid feed in winter. Late winter, as I said, bees won't take it. When you never feed, when you have honey supers on your hive. So don't go now and go like, oh, well, I thought I was going to make some honey, but Becky said we should feed, so I'm going to feed, even though don't ever do that. Because all you're doing then is creating some adulterated honey. That's not an appropriate. Once honey supers on, they're off. And take care, because robbing is way more common in the fall. Now is that time. So a few more questions. We have this from our Zoom question and answer. Why not feed 2 to 1 in midsummer? This was July or early August. Maybe it was early August. They were talking about why not feed 2 to 1 right then? Anybody have speculations on that? I thought it was a good question. Why not? Why not just feed it 2 to 1? Well, it kind of goes to the answer to the second question. What should your bees be doing right now? what, in a perfect hive, what do you want to see your bees?
Come on, outside.
I
Oh,
want them, that brood box should be shrinking and they're backfilling
carpeting.
with nectar or with honey, and they're filling that all in, all that space. Well, if I feed them the 2-to-1, it's gonna be able to evaporate it down into a honey-like consistency much faster than the 1-to-1. But earlier in the year, if I feed the 1-to-1,
Want me to go get paper
I'm
towels?
going to stimulate more brood rearing. And that late summer, that isn't the time when I want to stimulate brood rearing. I want them calming down. We are going into winter. So I think another question to ask at that time, if you're looking at that 1st of August time and kind of going, wow, I should really be feeding my bees. Why is your hive starving? Is it really awful location? There is nothing for them. Are we in the middle of a drought? One year we started feeding shortly after the 4th of July because we were in horrible drought and there was nothing but crispy grass. It was awful. And so we started feeding really, really early. But why is your hive starving? And so think about that in that whole process. So let's talk just a minute about robbing, because it is often triggered by feeding and it's also much more prevalent this time of year. So why do bees rob? And it's because they can, but it's sometimes bees do everything because they can. So they are the ultimate recyclers of resources. And if they perceive that there's resources over here that they can use, they're gonna go like, we should take that, we should get that. And oh, you guys aren't really gonna use that honey anyway, we'll just take it away from you. So often there is a dearth in the fall, and that is part of what we need to consider, why they are robbing if there are no other resources out there. If a colony appears active, very active, agitated, and you may even see fighting, that's a sign that that's going on. And part of that will be, look at these bees all around the lid. Look at them at every scene, at every entrance opportunity. That's the sign of robbing. We still have bees at certain times of the day that are kind of doing the orientation flights. We have kind of a big cluster out in front. They're doing the big figure 8 kind of flight, and they're kind of just losing. My gosh, there's a lot of bees. Are we having a robbing situation? Well, partly it's auditory. What do they sound like? You can almost hear the difference when they're robbing. But this trying to get in at all of the seams of the lid is a really good way to observe that robbing is probably happening. If you got into this hive, you would see ragged, torn cells. You would have wax flakes on the bottom board. But the colony that's actually doing the robbing may only appear just slightly more active. So it's hard to go, well, who's the bad guy here? Who's doing the robbing? And it's often really, really hard to figure that one out. Other things to think about when you're doing robbing, to avoid them, you want to minimize hive exposure. If you're going out to do an inspection, try to keep everything covered. Don't pull out a bunch of frames and leave them set around. Try to get in, see what you want to see in that hive and get out. If you're looking for queen right, you're looking for how much brood is in there, make sure that you're in and out and moving on. An extra towel to throw over one of the supers is not a bad plan, or an extra lid, something to keep those from being exposed for too long. Reduce your entrances. The entrances can now go down to a smaller entry port. At this time of year, we still have some bearding. We've had such hot weather in these last couple of weeks that we still have quite a bit of bearding. But if you suspect that the hive is weak and that there may be a robbing situation about to happen, don't hesitate to close that down a little bit. Never open feed, as we said before. Internal or contact feeders are best. Feed them at dusk. Everybody's going home at dusk anyway, so go out and make that the last chore of the day. Don't spill your syrup. Now that's easy to say after you've spilled it. How do you clean that mess up? But try not to spill it. Check for leaky feeders. A leaky feeder will almost always incite robbing. And unfortunately, queenless colonies are also more vulnerable. If we have a robbing event take place, that's one of the first things we check for, make sure that they were clean right, because they may not have been. Other questionable practices. Now, this was kind of on the internet kind of today. So this is, they extracted these supers and then they set them outside to clean up. And this is, you can't see from this picture very well, but that's an uncapped tank that they are cleaning up. Not an uncommon practice. But again, like the other things, when you've got robbing started, this can also be incite that robbing, get that going, and once started, it's going to be really hard to stop. So decide whether this is the most efficient way to deal with cleaning these up. When we want to dry out some supers, if we have something that we didn't get honey extracted well, we want to make sure we get, let's let the bees clean this up a little bit. We'll put it back on a hive and put it above the inner cover, and then put a lid on top of that, so that for the bees to access it, they have to go through that quarter beescape in your inner cover. They'll go up and they will mostly clean out the honey. And here's the good part, they won't put honey back in. Every time Stephen and Verlinda would put honey supers on, oh, they'll clean those out. And we'd go out in a day and it's like, no, they put nectar in these. That's not okay. That's not what I wanted to have happen. So be careful when you're doing that. And so, did I say be careful like 55 times? Be careful. Just be careful. That is it. Feeding your bees. You have any questions about feeding? Steve will answer the questions.
Mine goes to your clean up the supers. So I put my supers back on, once you clean it up, and then go take them off and they're full of bees. So what's the next step? Because it's get rid of the bees, but then you set it out and it seems like you create a rubbish situation.
Okay. So set it out at dusk, right at dusk. And they then will want to go back home. But that is, it's like, okay, now do I have to put that skateboard on there again and try to run these guys out and go through that rigmarole? If you'll take the supers off, set them right in front of the hive at dusk, go out at full dark, and they should all pretty much come back in the hive. And if that doesn't work, don't call me. That's usually it. That'll usually work. So that's a good question. Thanks.
We've got a queenless hive, and one that does have a queen. What would you do to have to get a mated queen now? This is done before its way. My suggestion was to merge the two hives, be sure they're fed, order a queen for early next spring, and make a split up. Is that a good thinking or not?
Daryl's asking about if you have two hives and one of them is queenless and one of them is not, is now a good time to try to requeen that queenless hive, or should you combine with the hopes that then you'll be able to split next spring? And I would go with plan B. I think trying to get a mated queen at this time and get her established, get her to lay eggs, get that, because that's still, even if you get a mated queen, is 10 days, 2 weeks, and we're at the end of September. We are right up against that. I mean, some years we've been looking at frost right now, and it's like, oh, we're done. We're really done. So I would not make that choice. Steve, do you agree?
Yeah.
Good answer. Thank you. He said, yeah.
We have a Zoom question.
Okay.
Can you please repeat the emergency recipe?
Yes, or you can get them off of the website when it gets posted. But let's go back to the emergency. Are we talking about Clarence's emergency recipe?
They didn't specify in the question.
Okay, well, we're going with Clarence's because that's the one I like.
Yes, they said yes, Clarence.
Okay, okay. So Clarence's is 25 pounds of sugar, beet or cane, a quart of apple cider vinegar, and I use Bragg's organic vinegar, but you can use what you like. 3 tablespoons of either the Honeybee Healthy or the Pro Health, which is Man Lake's, kind of their feed supplements with essential oils in them, 3 tablespoons of citric acid, and nothing, no cooking, just stir it up and put it out. So
How long did that take to dry?
how long did it take to dry? I thought it was pretty dry in 24 hours, but I couldn't peel it out of the paper plate. And then I just kind of ignored it. And so it was about a week later and I went back and went, oh, I think I can peel this out of the paper plate now. So more than a day and less than a week. Joe,
Is there an efficient way to feed extracted honey back to your bees, your own extracted honey?
is there an efficient way to feed your extracted honey back to your bees? And if there is, I do not know what it is. Anybody, Jolie, Cecil, feed extracted honey back to your bees? We always sell ours. We don't. No, Cecil got anything? No. You know, honestly, Joe, every feeder, every time I've seen that done, it ends up being a sticky, gooey mess. And no matter what, the bees, as they try to access it, it's like, they don't handle it well. It just
Yeah.
isn't good for them. So I don't have any answers. Good question.
You have to water it down.
You almost would, Marty saying you'd water it down, and you almost would need to, except that then it's gonna ferment, or it's gonna change it, and I'm not sure that's a good strategy either. Robert, did you have a suggestion?
Oh, the inverted jar method like Steve uses.
Well, and that's probably a little hole, and they're actually sucking it out of there, so it's probably about it.
With 100% honey?
I don't feed mine 100% honey. I don't feed the honey back to them. I use sugar.
I did it for it, like Robert said one time, early on, when I was beginning, and I did it, quart jar of just regular honey.
Straight honey?
Adding to the
Yeah,
two people,
small-
Cheryl
small
said
holes inverted.
she did a quart of her own honey. Focus on your own honey, never anybody else's. And she used it in an inverted jar feeder and it worked for her. So there you go. Okay,
Why nobody else's honey?
why nobody?
Because it could have disease. It could have American foul.
Apparently, and this is not our, I don't do research, I just report what other people do. Like 99% of the store honey has foul brood in it. So nothing, not a drop, not for your queen, not anything that's not your honey. So make sure.
And that's why you tell your neighbors not to go buy a jar from the store and put it out there and feed the bees just for fun.
Oh, exactly, yeah, that's, yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
What did you say it had in it again? I didn't catch that.
American foul brood spores. American foul brood, pardon me, it'll kill a hive. It always kills a hive. It's always deadly to a hive. It was very problematic 75 years ago. They did a lot of research on it. They still have spores that are like over 70 years old that are active. So it doesn't matter. That's why we always warn, don't buy old equipment. Don't, use some, if you don't know why this hive died, maybe you shouldn't be using that equipment then. So it is one of those kind of diseases that can be a real problem for beekeepers. But honestly, we don't see it real often. But apparently in foreign countries where most of our store honey comes from, if it's blended or something else, it's very prevalent. So that's it. Okay, we done with the Zoom questions?
No more Zoom questions.
Perfect. Okay, on to Cheryl. Cheryl's gonna do the fun stuff.
Very long.
Well, then just stay there close. Okay. So that's not Cheryl. This is Cheryl. Yeah, let's sit down.
You guys can give me some.
cheese. We're gonna go eat it. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe the one that's. Yeah. Who got to watch Becky's presentation on Thursday? Anybody in this group? Okay. Kansas Honey Producers still is putting on value-added product segments the third Thursday of every month. And Becky did one this last Thursday, primarily on soap. But she had some recipes for lotion and that sort of thing too, which are still available on Kansas Honey Producers site if anybody wants to access those. I say value-added products for the novice because I'm still a novice. We have 2 members in our club that I would say do an exceptional job at making soaps and lotions and lip balms, and that's Jolie Weiner, and she's in the back, and Becky Tipton, and they're really great at explaining how to do things. I took my first class in 2015. These are old pictures I dug up, and Becky and Jolie together gave this class. And Cecil was there. They were doing candles, and Steve Tipton was outside rendering wax. And it was just a great day. If you have the opportunity to take a course from either of these 2 ladies, I highly recommend it. So there was my first class, January 2015. I counted back, I think I've been to 4 different classes, either given by both of these ladies together or individually. Susan Lane and I used to both go to them. I would do one type of soap with a certain scent. She'd do another type of soap with a certain scent. And then after the soap cured, we exchange half of our product. So we had a little bit of both. And I would share them with friends and family and gift them at Christmas. And they really liked them. And so they would come back and they'd want more. And I didn't have any more. And I hadn't gone to any more soap classes. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to just knuckle down and do this at home. And I don't know why I was scared to do this. I don't know if it was working with the lye or there were so many steps, or I didn't know in my soap trace. But I finally made my own soap. And so I show this picture just to prove to people I make my own soap. But I don't make it to the extent that Becky and Jolie do, but it's getting to the point where I make it almost year round now because people ask for it. And don't judge me on my labels, because my labels are changing even as we speak. Because especially after this presentation, I've decided that I need to put a bit more on them. But anyway, we're going to do a couple of real easy ones. I'm one of those instant gratification type people, so I want a product right away. I don't want to wait a couple weeks for it to cure and that sort of thing. Beeswax. If you were successful in harvesting some honey this year, you'd probably have some cappings wax. It's the white wax upstairs that the queens never laid in it. It's gorgeous stuff. And we can use it for soaps and lotions and lip balms and that sort of thing. It's probably one of the most valuable commodities that we get out of our hive. And so this wax has been rendered twice. And I pour it into molds that I get from Man Lake. They're awesome molds. When I first started, I had about 5 buckets of cappings wax that I hadn't done anything with. And so I rendered a whole lot of wax a couple of years ago. And I poured them into these big 1 and 2 pound blocks. Those don't work really well when you get ready to make soaps and lotions. I should have bought a whole bunch of these little 1 ounce ones that you see up there. Now be careful. You need to measure your product. You need to weigh your product. Those little 1 ounce bars are really more about like a one and a quarter
ounces. So you need to really weigh your product when you're making stuff. So I bought some more molds, and I do a lot of the little smaller bars now because they're easier to melt. So if you decide you don't want to make anything, you can sell this capping wax to other people like Becky and Jolie that do. So and like I said, whether you use a solar wax melter to do that, which you can just put some stuff in and walk away. I'm not going to get into the particulars on melting wax, or you can do the turkey fryer with propane. And then for the second rendering, my cat usually gets me up at 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning, so I get a lot of work done in the morning. So I will put a little bit of that first rendered wax in a double boiler with some cheesecloth, and I'll render it again, and then I'll just pour it from one of those into these molds that you see in the bottom. But anyway. Lip balm. And I didn't bring the stuff, we're gonna do just the lotions here later, but the lip balms, this recipe, 4.5 ounces of beeswax. So if you've got your own white wax at home, 3 ounces of extra virgin olive oil, 1.5 ounces of cocoa butter. Now make sure you get deodorized cocoa butter, otherwise the smell of cocoa permeates. I've never had the regular, but the deodorized is what you want. 1.5 ounces of shea butter, 1.5 ounces of hemp seed oil, 1.5 ounces of jojoba oil, and you'll melt this all in a container, a double boiler, and then divide it into jars. The whole batch makes about 90 lip balms, but you can divide what you melt into like 3 of these jars. And one of these, about 4 ounces, will make you about 30 lip balms. So just the top ingredients, melt all those, pour them into 3 of something like this size. And just let them harden, let them cool, don't put the lid on them yet. Then you can have them, just if you need them. Then you can do 30 lip balms at a time. You'll reheat this jar in a double boiler like I'm showing there. And once that product's melted, then you'll add your vitamin E oil. I do a 1/2 teaspoon per jar, not the whole batch, just per jar. So it'd be a full teaspoon and a half if you were doing the whole batch. And then a teaspoon of your flavor oil. I like to use spearmint. You can use vanilla, cherry, punch, pick what you want. But I always like spearmint. I just stay with spearmint. And everybody loves it. My husband and all his hunting buddies, fishing buddies, everybody. I get orders for lip balm all the time. Neighbors come over, they came back the other day. We gotta have some more of it. So I can make it, it's quick. You see the pipettes, and they're probably groaning. When I first started, I had one of these trays. Not all lip balm tubes that you buy from different companies will fit in those trays. And so the second order of lip balms I had wouldn't fit in the tray. So I got used to using the pipette. And I've just never gone back. So you could melt this and pour it into like a Pyrex cup or something that has a spout, and you could pour into this using this tray, and it'd be a lot faster. I just do 30 at a time. I do pipettes. I can't get away from it because I got used to doing this all the time, where I just stand them up and band them together with a rubber band. So I just do it that way. You can do it however you want to. There's no right or wrong way. Don't fill them all the way to the top. Fill them, is that the plunger? What is that piece called in the center, Becky?
That piece in the middle.
Yeah, that's the screw part. And it's probably, these are not probably quite high enough. I like to go at least a little bit above those. And then that center is going to sink down, and then you're going to get that air bubble, that air hole in there that doesn't have anything in it. And let it cool. And then come back and fill it with some more warm solution. And then you'll have these pretty tops like that. The only problem I have with these, you gotta let these harden a little bit. You gotta do a little bit of a twist maneuver and then try to pull them out, or you can mess up that top surface of the lip balm. It takes a little talent. I mean, you can put them in the refrigerator or the freezer to kind of shrink that wax a little bit. Maybe that would help breaking them out. I just don't use the trays all that much. Pricing your product. And I wanted to tell you, don't put the caps on those lip balms until they're totally cool, because you'll create moisture under that cap and that'll cause problems too. So make sure everything's totally cool before you put lids on stuff. You need to know what it's costing you to make this product. So you need to come to a price point so you know how much you want to ask for your product. You don't want to be not making anything. So by doing the pricing on this, it tells me that my labels are really expensive, but they're pretty, aren't they? Yeah, they're really pretty. And everybody likes these. You can do custom stuff at holidays. You can get holiday labels. I've done them for weddings. My niece got married. I put her and her husband to be their picture that was on their announcement and a wedding date on them, and we used them as like wedding favors. So you are, you know, other holidays, you know, baptisms, you know, figure it out. I mean, you can do anything with these and you can customize these. But I like to do some at Christmas time, and everybody likes them for stockings. So I don't know if you can see those. I mean, I should have put a price on your beeswax because it did cost you. I'd get it for free, but it's cost me a little bit. So I mean, even if I put in $4.50 up here and I divide it by 90, I'm adding 5 cents a tube. Woo-hoo. So you're at about 60 cents a tube. And there's not a whole lot in beekeeping that I think of that we ever make a profit with. So this is really fun. I mean, my son, the finance guy, that's $233 profit there, Mom, right? You shouldn't show these people that. Now Chad's got, don't blow my theory here. But no, soaps, lotions, lip balms, you can sell them for a lot more than what it costs you to make them. And if you can add that to what you're flying, if you can add that to what you're selling, I wanted to offer something besides just honey or different products. I did comb honey, I've done chunk honey. I need to start learning to do cream honey, but I wanted to do something that wasn't in the edibles. To have something on the side.
And that should take into consideration your labor costs too, to their guidance.
Right, right. There's not hardly any labor in this, Chad, compared to what we do.
Oh, sure, but, you know.
I might not even break a sweat doing this. And I've already broke a sweat just getting out of the car and getting the smoker lit.
But once you're in the business to do it though.
Right.
You should, you know, evaluate, say, okay, if
Right.
I made, you know, 500, you know, in 2 hours, divide out the fact that, let's say my value of my time might be $45
Sure.
an hour.
Sure.
And
Sure.
figure it in because, you know.
Well, and stuff, items like tubes, tins for your lotion bars. You can buy the bigger bulk you buy, the cheaper the price is that goes down. So, and those things aren't going to get, you know, it's not going to get rancid like oil or something. I mean, so, you know, you can have certain amount of stuff on your shelves for making product, but you can store tins if you got space, or go in with a friend or a couple of beekeeper friends and say, I'm going to buy, you know, a case of, you know, tins or whatever. Do you want to go in and split them with me? And lots of times you get free shipping if you get a big enough order too. So, or, but you know, you got to figure your shipping if you have something that you're having shipped to you and it's going to cost you. So, package labeling requirements. I went to the FDA. If you really want to get mind boggled after late in the day after working all day long, get on the FDA's website on cosmetics and soaps. And I went to the Soapers Guild, I think, too, and I started reading and got more and more confused. But you need to, at least on that panel, what are you selling? Are you selling soap? Are you selling lip balm? Are you selling lotion? It needs to be on display. And then they want the contents, whether it's a weight or a volume measurement or a numerical count or a combination thereof. It's usually in the lower part of your label at the bottom. And then a business name and address. I'm really bad about putting that. There's so much stuff you gotta cram in such a small label. But at least your address. If, like Chad, he has Next to Nature Farm, we hardly have phone books anymore. But if I can go online and I can go on the web and I can type in Next to Nature Farm and I can generate something probably on the web, since we hardly use phone books anymore. From what I understood from the FDA, he doesn't necessarily have to put a physical address. He can put Next to Nature Farm, Tonganoxie, Kansas, or wherever you're at, and not have to have a physical street address. But he still has to put Tonganoxie, and they really wanted a zip too. Jolie at Heartland Honey could probably just get by Heartland Honey, Spring Hill, Kansas, and be okay, and not have her physical street address on there. But anyway, this is still a work in progress for me, but they want a business name and address. You don't have to put your phone number. You don't have to put an email. If people want to find you easier, sometimes you like to put a phone number because you want them to be able to contact you. If you're like me and don't really have a business website. And then you've got to have your ingredients, because we don't want to give something to people and they're allergic to it, for God's sakes, too. So you need to have your ingredients, and they need to be in descending order of predominance. What does that mean? It means that the stuff that's the most goes at the top and goes in order to the least at the very last of the list. So beeswax is the primary ingredient in lip balm, followed by extra virgin olive oil and so forth. So that's an example of a label, of labeling requirements for your products. Lotion bars, and I've got smaller ones here, and I'm gonna make some, and Becky, this is hardened again, and I should have turned the heat back up under this, because it's all set up now.
You just have one big lotion bar there.
Yeah, it's, well, it'll probably melt pretty quick here. I bought these on Amazon. And these are silicone. Silicone, I think, are the best molds that there are. They tend to not, what's the other ones that you would use, the Milky, what are those called?
Milky Way is a company that puts out, does a lot of molds.
Milky Way does molds. Sometimes it's harder to get the product to come loose of those molds. And so if you chill it a little bit for just a few minutes, that'll help break it loose. I'm sure Jolie and Becky have lots of tricks to try to get the product off of the mold. But these silicone molds I got, and they came three to a pack for 14 something. I got them on Prime, and so they had them to me right away. You can buy several packs of these, though. This particular recipe here only makes, you know, if I fill them all the way to the very top, I get about 14 on here. When you weigh your product, I mean, most of these molds, you'll get about 1.25. Let me say that right, 1.25 ounces. You don't want to ever label your product higher. I mean, I have to account for a little variance, so I usually say it's a 1 ounce product, even though I know I'm at like 1.25, because I don't want to say it's really more than it is. So I always err on the side of being a little lower, but the size of these tins, and I think I got these at Paper Mart, maybe. Jolie and Becky make a 2 ounce, and And that's in the actual products, 2 ounces. And you can do them in the big round ones, or you can do them in these hexagon shape. And sell them that way. Inside, so this will make, this particular recipe makes about 14 bars. And you'll melt your beeswax, cocoa butter, use deodorized again, or you can do shea butter instead. And 6 ounces of almond oil. That's what I have in this pot here. That's hardened up on me again. And you put it in a double boiler and melt it. And then once it's all melted, then I'm going to add the vitamin E oil, 2 teaspoons of vitamin E oil, and then a tablespoon of either essential oil or fragrance oil to it. But don't do it until you have that top melted. You need to let it cool just a little bit, just so it's not setting up on you. Stir it through, and then you'll pour it into these molds, and then let them cool. Sometimes I do them in the evening, and I don't even pop them out until the next morning. And then put them in. I didn't bring my tray, but I work over a tray, so when I get sloppy, I'm not scraping wax product off of the countertops. But I just do stuff in the kitchen lots of times. So I'll pop those out and then put them into the tins. And I put a little piece of fabric because that'll help keep the lotion bar from sticking to the bottom of the tin so that you can't get it out. So like I do the lavender lotion bar, so I like to have something purple in the bottom to go with what I'm making. So that's just a little picture, and I just use one of those scissors called it, so you don't have all those strings. Pinking shears. My mother was the home ec manager too.
Pinking shears.
I never followed her footsteps in home ec. So anyway, that's what it looks like in the tin, and then I'm still working on labels here. I'm not very original. If you recognize the bee on the flower, it's because you see it in the newsletter. On one occasion. But so there's my label. When I don't do a lot of farmers markets, I sell at home. People come in and pick up product at my house. And I will have this kind of display, and so they'll go, oh, I didn't know you made lotions or soap. It's like, and so usually I catch them for some other product they weren't intending to buy because they were there to just pick up honey. So that little cute thing I got at Hobby Lobby. And also, if you see the chalkboard in the back, you can erase and change prices, and it displays on both sides. So if you needed to hold it up and take it to the farmer's market, you could take it with you. So that's just a little bit of my place. Some soaps and lotion, lip balm prices. So it makes great gifts too. Family, friends, your landowners at Christmas time. My grandchildren get packages for their teachers. A little lotion or so or lip balm and a bear. And so their teachers get gifts at Christmas time. They always hit me up to put something together. So, questions?
What fragrances are your top sellers, Cheryl?
I asked that in you. That's always a good person. Ask Becky or Jolie, what's your top sellers? Because you get an idea. And that's another thing. There's a lot of scents out there. I have bought some and I just don't care for them. And here you got a whole jug. I'm sure Jolie and Becky would not have any problem if you call them ahead of time and say, hey, I want to come and smell. After you smell about 5 of them, though, you're just done for the day. But the milk and honey from the sage. Lavender. I'm not a lavender fan. I'm sorry, but I have so many requests for lavender that I make it for people special. And the apple, I like the apple in the fall. I really like that one. And then the white tea and ginger, the brambleberry product. Brambleberry has the different, I've got that one. I borrowed some of these from Becky already, but brambleberry I use, and the sage I use. I've used Paper Mart. I've used online labels and Avery. Jolie and Becky both have. Jolie, do you have laser printer?
No, mine is an inkjet.
Inkjet, and you print all your own labels though,
Yeah.
right? And Becky prints all her own labels too. So probably get with them if you have questions on printing your own labels. For me, I don't do enough yet. It's getting there, but I mean, Avery, I ordered something from them on Saturday. It's being shipped. So you can have stuff in just, a matter of a few days. So with both online labels and Avery, I haven't had to wait very long at all. So, and you can do custom stuff, or you can use one of their templates and just put your own stuff in. So that's what I've been doing for the most part. I mean, I've printed some, but I need to get a different printer.
Do they stick pretty easy to the tube? Is there certain?
Well, the ones that I use are they're a vinyl and they're water resistant stuff. And I know, yeah, they stick real good. And it's got that little safety seal thing. So yeah, they work really well. And they have them special for tubes. Make them special that way.
Even, I mean, like when you make them, if you get a little over on the sides or, just.
Oh, with the wax?
Yeah.
You can wipe, once you get the lid closed on them, you can wipe them off with paper towel and stuff, and I haven't had any problems with them sticking. The label on them after that. Yeah, probably wash them or something. Anyway.
Now you're cooking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody bring any hot dogs? I wanted to tell you, and we put it in the newsletter all the time, but in regards to value added products, October, Robin Coulterman is doing liquid soap. And then in November, we're doing the beeswax, the candle making and stuff. So those would be two excellent things.
I have a question, Carol.
Yeah.
Where'd you get your t-shirt?
I don't remember. I just think it's funny.
That's awesome.
I think I looked online. I have to buy it to bring it. Yeah. Yeah. That's my clean living stuff and graph tape. I knew Robert would appreciate this one. Yeah. So, yeah. Anyway.
There's a Zoom question, Robert.
Almost there. Now that's globbed all in the thing because I didn't take my tool out. And I said I was going to go to my car and get roll of paper towels. I'll have this out here on the outside of the. Tell me if you're short one.
You'd be fun, just a paper towel, sure.
No.
You need something out of the bathroom one board.
That might not be a bad idea if I just have one. We about got it here, and I'm gonna set this aside and put the measure this stuff. I think that's what always made the classes so much easier is because you didn't have to worry about having buying product, having it bought ahead of time, having it available. And then Becky and Jolie would always have it pre-measured out in little containers. So like when you're doing even a Today Show stint, when they cook, they already got them I could cook. This is easy, because the stuff is already measured out in these little, dishes right in front of me. That makes it fun. And so I think that's why it was so fun to do the classes, because you didn't have to worry about your product. It was already there in little jars for you. You just mixed it and stirred and you were good.
I'm glad you thought they were fun.
They are fun. They are fun. I wish you and Jolie would. Thank you. Oh, I have time to eat. No, Joe, you guys, that one you did in 2015, I don't know if you've done another one like that since, but that was awesome.
It's been a while. That's for
That all, I don't know, is that most of the, we were there a while. What building? It wasn't in this building. Which building was it in?
It was the building that was torn down.
Oh, was it? So anyway, let's burn myself here. So, yeah, the reason I don't heat this, with, I don't know on the vitamin E, but the fragrance oil, if you would heat it when it was with fragrance oil in it, you dissipate some of that stuff. So I let it cool a little bit. Jolie, on your, my dad loves these. What, is this still similar? I mean, I didn't have the recipe up here, but you got the beeswax, shea butter, cocoa butter, and coconut oil. What's the
I do.
the amount?
Well, my recipe is 11 ounces of beeswax, 10 ounces of cocoa butter, 10 ounces of shea butter, and 10 ounces of coconut oil. So whatever you do, have them equal, but put a little more beeswax in.
How much fragrance then do you
Oh,
use?
in that much, I do 2 ounces of fragrance.
My dad has these horrible feet. Horrible feet. Scaly, gross. He slathers Jolie's bars. So I need to start making some on my own. I have some of Jolie's just for my dad's feet when he wants them. I said, Dad, she's at the farmer's market. It's not even probably 10 minutes for you. If you live in Olathe, you could probably drive out to her house. She'd probably say you right out of the house.
I would drop them by for
I
you.
know, don't start, Jolie, because, yeah, he would take you up on that. So anyway, this is, hopefully most of this will go in here, but this is, and I need to do the recipe here because I can't. The lip balm and the lotion bars start running together after a while. So it's 2 teaspoons of vitamin E and a tablespoon of, this is lavender. And hopefully I don't have it all over me because this, but
Cheryl, we have a Zoom question. How long can these products be stored?
I haven't had to keep them long enough to have to worry about that.
That's a good thing.
Becky or Jolie, how long are these how long are these lotion bars good for, give or take?
They will degrade.
Yeah, they do degrade over time.
Anything that we make, we're not putting preservatives in it. That's the good news.
Yeah.
There are no preservatives.
No preservatives.
Great for your skin. But the bad news is there's no preservatives. And so it really degrades. Honestly, 6 months is about the outside.
See, I always
I
keep,
would-
yeah, and my soaps, I always keep them in a, once they've cured, I keep them in an airtight container.
Yeah, that's important.
Or even Ziplocs.
Did they hear? Did they get the answer?
I've done tests on that, and normally what we'll see with similar types of ingredient components, like what are on the recipes that you use, like at about a year, you start to see the essential oils and the fragrance oils begin to separate, and you'll get a granulation of one of the ingredient components within the bar.
Well, Chad, I was just telling Becky, I threw all my out from last year and I made new ones because I thought it was some kind of crappy shea butter I had.
Yeah.
And I made new ones and it's only been 2 weeks with new ingredients from different places and I'm already getting these funky little crisp, I mean, they're
Yeah, the
just weird.
granulation.
Yeah.
I've seen the shea butter, really poor quality shea butter will be one of the worst culprits with that. But I also think that sometimes when you get poor quality oils,
Fragrance oils.
fragrance oils that they can, have an adverse, I don't want to say chemical reaction, but they can have a adverse reaction that sometimes can.
And that's the thing is I've been using the same fragrance oils, but I have changed some companies with my shea butter, cocoa butter, and that, and I don't know, but I spent a fortune on new ingredients and throwing stuff out. I've even tried remelting them and repouring them, and that didn't work either, so I'm in a bind right now.
I know when I have used shea butter, and if I have let it get too hot, that you'll get little lumps, little protein lumps in it, so it's not that, but it's that, so just be careful with all of these, when you're doing that double boiler. Treat them with care, low temperatures.
And keep plenty of water in the double boiler. Don't we?
Exactly. Yeah.
And I find too that especially if you do farmers markets, your lifespan of your products is less because you get that granulation will increase if those lotion bars are, out on a table for, in 90-degree weather, multiple weeks in a row, obviously, the value of the quality of the product.
So that you think the heat, dragging them in and out for, your different farmers markets probably doesn't help either.
I think too, when you overheat it on the stove top and you let it go for a little bit longer, I think if you can just bring everything to liquid from a solid state and then stop and not get tied up talking on the phone to somebody that calls.
So this one I melted twice.
You
probably
turn
doesn't
around
suit
and
it.
5 to 7 minutes later, something's already been on too long.
Yes, yes.
Does it help any keeping the stuff cooler? Has anybody tried that, or even like say farmers market, like keep it in coolers or resell it, or even in your like a light refrigerator, at your home or in your barn?
I mean, that's the thing, I've been doing a farmer's market for 20 years, and this is the first year.
Yeah, this is,
Yeah,
you haven't done anything different.
So.
Yeah. Is there any difference, say, you using an essential oil versus a fragrance oil with your reaction type stuff, Ken?
I found that essential oils tend to have a higher quality and have a longer value than the fragrance.
Like the
oils.
lavender oil is
Yeah, so
essential oil.
I would use a lavender
Right.
fragrance oil. I would use a lavender essential.
This is a
oil.
lavender essential oil.
Yeah.
For
Your
your-
quality
Yeah.
is higher, so it's gonna degrade.
Whereas your milk and honey is gonna be a fragrance oil. Yeah. So these will start to set up pretty quick and they'll get that light colored top on them. So I like this kind of stuff because if somebody orders something, you could make this the day before and have it for them. If you have all of your, Chad wax, because I don't do a whole lot. But you could,
Unlike soap.
when you do soap, you've got to make it and then you've got a cure time. So you've got to have some planning ahead of time. If I'm gonna have soap for people to buy before Christmas, I need to be getting it made within the next month. To have time for it to cure before it's used. There's still another month or so, but you've got to make sure you got your ingredients and that you're ready to go. And I always sell out and then I'm making more and I'm trying to still extract some remaining supers and treat hives and get mite treatments on and stuff like that. So I'm like a one-man show. So
You should retire.
I need to, and my husband, you can take this, Robert. He said anytime. Do it.
Can you add different colors to those?
I haven't tried. Have you tried?
I haven't tried. I don't see any reason to.
I would worry that you would have,
Separation or something.
An allergic reaction.
Or
Well, that-
reactions.
I'm
with
thinking
color.
you'd have pink fingers then. I think it would color you in this, so.
I wonder if the elderberry, because elderberry washes off. You know how in grapes you get grape stain everywhere, but elderberry is one of those strange things.
And pokeberry too.
Yeah, and it washes off. Everybody always thinks it's elderberry and they got pokeberry. So,
Yes.
all right, yes.
Like when you say on your soap, you know, that you're gonna use it for the holidays or something, you say that be going on, what is roughly a cure time on the soap side? That will probably vary in size.
3-4 weeks. Minimum, yeah, minimum of 30 weeks.
Yeah, 3.
Well, and I did some soaps and I was still trying to get honey down, and I was using the honey house this year, and I had the dehumidifier going with 30% humidity in the honey extraction house, and they cured faster. I actually looked online. I was asking Becky, I said, is this gonna mess up this drying time or curing time on the soaps? And I think I mean, everything I read was it's about a week earlier on curing. I actually, I started going on sites and Googling it, because I didn't have any dehumidifier. So, you know, if I got, you know, a shelf in the extraction house in the back where I store all my stuff, I've got the soaps in there. Because I'm not doing it on a huge scale, so. Well, thanks, Cheryl.
We have one giveaway.
Cheryl, do you want to?
I'll draw one ticket from the people who signed in.
Here.
What if we had 10 drawings, one pair for each? Just want to have that whole big.
One for each lotion bar.
There you go.
Cheryl said.
Problem is it hasn't set up yet. I don't know. I may be here a while.
Get over it.
I don't know. I was hoping.
And I would like to ask
I should've
people,
brought
as you
some.
get up, if you carry your chairs over and hang them in there, it would help us a lot to get out of here at this hour. Okay, our winner is, the last 3 is 867. 867. There we go.
All right.
Like to thank Becky and Cheryl both. And I'll add a little bit. When you have these oils, and the lighter the chain length, like coconut oil is one of the shorter ones. We used to put nitrogen blanketing on to keep it from oxidizing. So what you can do is, yes, you can refrigerate it, or 2, keep very little head space of airspace above whatever it is you're going to store. We'll add shelf life, shea butter, and that kind of stuff. Same thing. So yes, they are volatile. They will oxidize. They'll go rancid fairly rapidly. But any questions? Thank you.
We get this figured out. I literally had everything set up. Everything set up last time. You know, so I need to make sure that the turns really down. Go tomorrow. Came here, plugged it in. I can't get any signal. Same cable I was using. Same everything.
Yeah, basically. See, here's my little containers. She always has one of hers too. Just in order to come out with and then, well, it's still